Canada is facing its second worst wildfire season on record, according to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. With more than 72,000 square kilometres burned, an area the size of New Brunswick, surpassing 1989 and about half of last year's record. Saskatchewan and Manitoba have been hit hardest, with smoke choking communities nationwide and 1,400 international firefighters brought in since May. Scientists warn climate change is making these seasons longer and more intense. And on that note, we're joined by Robert McLeman, professor at Wilfrid Laurier University and an expert on climate change impacts. Thanks for being here, Robert.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So from your perspective, what makes 2025's wildfire activity so extreme?
Well, there's a couple of things that are happening. So this is the third consecutive year of really hot, dry conditions in Western Canada, where we've had really large wildfires. And it got off to an early start this year. So in many parts of northern Manitoba and parts of Saskatchewan, the fire season started in May and June. And that's really problematic for a couple reasons. One is that obviously it makes the length of the fire season just that much longer. But also in the early parts of summer, late spring, there's not a lot of green vegetation in the forest, and there's a lot of litter that has accumulated over the course of the preceding winter. So it got off to a really big start in terms of fires, and there's been a lot of displacements, people having to be evacuated. And now the season is extending right across Canada. We've got fires from British Columbia to Newfoundland now.
Well, Saskatchewan and Manitoba have seen the most land burn. Why are these provinces being hit so hard this season?
Well, there's a couple things going on. The fires that are burning in northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba are in fairly loosely populated areas. A lot of the communities up there are First Nations communities. There's not a lot of firefighting capacity up there. And what's happened is, again, we had this really hot, dry spring and early summer in those areas. The fires started naturally from lightning strikes. And so it's just one of those cases where the conditions are ideal for large fires. The actual number of fires is not all that different from preceding years, but it's the size of the fires, because there's so much flammable material available that the fires are spreading rapidly and covering large areas.
Well, what about Manitoba? Because we've been seeing quite a bit of activity there as well.
Yes. So if we look at sort of the larger pattern over the last 3 years, so 3 years ago, we had really large fires in northern British Columbia, northern Alberta, parts of northwestern Saskatchewan. Then last year, of course, we had the big Alberta fires that destroyed the town of Jasper, for example. This year, what's happened is, given the precipitation patterns and the temperature patterns, essentially northern Manitoba has become the hot spot this year. It was spared some of those big fires in the last couple years, but this year, essentially those hot, dry fire weather conditions have spread into Manitoba, and that's what we're seeing now.
And of course, it's spreading smoke all over the country at times, and even down in the United States. Now, scientists link more intense fire seasons to climate change. Can you explain how warming climate drives this trend?
Absolutely. So I keep using the term fire weather. And so that's a set of conditions where we have above average temperatures, below average precipitation for an extended period of time. This is the sort of thing that farmers would refer to as drought conditions. And so when these fire weather conditions are occurring, then the risk of a fire occurring naturally is elevated. And what happens with a warming climate is that the number of days per year, essentially, that can fall into that fire weather conditions, it just increases. And so it starts to happen earlier in the year. We get more fire weather days throughout the year, and then the whole fire season extends over a longer period of time. So essentially, it elevates the risk of fires. And scientists estimate that in Canada, for example, the risk of wildfires due to extended fire weather conditions has doubled over the last century or so. So it doesn't mean to say that fires don't naturally occur. It's just that the risk of fires occurring increases, and the potential for them to get larger increases as the climate warms. We also have some other things going on in terms of some of the forests, have been damaged by insects because winters are milder, and so there's greater insect activity in the forest, and so there's more weakened trees that are available to be burned during a fire.
Fascinating. So insects also impact the wildfire season. That's interesting. Now, Canada has been at peak preparedness since May, even bringing in 1,400 international firefighters. Is this the new normal for firefighting in Canada, do you think?
I'm afraid it is. It's not like these conditions that make fires more likely are going to change anytime soon, so long as we keep burning fossil fuels. So we need to adapt, and one of the ways that we need to adapt is to have better forest firefighting capacity. So part of that is being able to move firefighters from one province to another in order to assist with firefighting. So right now we have firefighters from Quebec moving into Western Canada because Quebec has been spared a lot of the firefighters. But even domestically, we simply don't have that kind of capacity. So the fire season in the Southern Hemisphere is obviously opposite to ours. So we need to look at international agreements to move firefighters north and south to deal with the risks of greater fires in the future.
Yeah, in the past, we've had some from Australia and Mexico, so perhaps this is the new in-demand job that we might see in the near future. Now, what does this mean for the rest of the season, and how should Canada prepare for the years ahead?
Well, there's a couple things for this particular season. So we've seen drought conditions emerge in eastern Canada in the Atlantic provinces. There's a fairly significant wildfire that has emerged on the island of Newfoundland. So the Atlantic provinces have implemented burn bans. Much of Western Canada has burn bans. That means no campfires, no burning outdoors of any type. We need to follow through on those because we don't want to accidentally set fires in areas that are now at high risk. Looking forward into the future, there's a few things we need to do. We need to make our communities that are close to the forests more resilient. And what that means is creating natural fire buffers around settlements. It means in some cases prescribed burns. So deliberately going out and setting controlled fires to burn off some of that excess flammable vegetation at times when it's safe to do so. It also means, again, better resources for emergency planning, for evacuation, for firefighting. We just need to recognize that this is the new norm in forested areas of Canada.
And fire smart communities have been proven to be very beneficial in some areas, completely protecting infrastructure and homes in those communities. So something worth considering. Robert, we appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me on.
That's Robert McLeman, professor at Wilfrid Laurier University and an expert on climate change impacts.